Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to Project Generation, where Rabbi Fine gets to meet people who are a couple of years older than himself. Of course, not meet, we know each other very well. But we'd like to welcome, for our first interview actually, Stephen Rosenhead, very well known in the community. And at some point, perhaps Linda, bang on cue for this as well. Hello, Linda's going to join us as well. How are you? So I guess
I'm just checking that he doesn't say anything that's wrong.
She's my editor.
Perfect. So I guess let's start. I mean, what's your history in terms of Stanmore? You know, when did you come to the community? When did that all start?
Okay, well, the history's it's quite long actually. I was born in Westcliff. Came to London with my father and mother.
Rabbi asked you when you came to Stanmore.
When I came to Stanmore, well, I was going to give the whole generation down.
Well,
we won't do that. We won't do that. Came to Stanmore after we returned from Israel. We were living in Israel from 1972 to 1980 in Jerusalem. You won't remember this, but we remember it quite painfully. Inflation in Israel was rampant, and the economy was even more crazy than normal. So we came back for a couple of years to Lehit Avreh, to freshen our minds.
Okay.
2 years has been a long time.
We haven't freshened them yet.
But we're getting there.
So you moved. So when you came back,
So
from
we came
Israel,
to Stanmore purely and simply because my sister lived in Stanmore. The only difference is now my sister lives in Israel and I live in Stanmore, which is a bit crazy.
I guess it's like all those people from the Sochnut that come to England to try and convince us to move to Israel, and they end up staying and we end up going, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So so that means you've been here 28 years.
No, longer than that. We came
81. We moved.
We came to Stanmore in 81.
Sorry. 81.
We went to Israel. Linda and I met on a flight. Linda and I met on a flight going to Israel after the Six-Day War.
Oh, wow.
That's how we got together.
Wow.
So anyhow, we returned to England. I took my exams and then we made Aliyah. That was the plan.
Wow. Okay. Wow. And Linda, where are you from originally?
I was born in London. I've got a twin sister who lives in Manchester, and we've got an elder brother who lives in Denver. And my parents were both general practitioners, and we were born. I can't tell you when we were born. We were in London for 6 months and then my parents bought, because the NHS didn't exist at that time. So this was in 47. We moved to a place called Grays in Essex, where they bought a practice from somebody who was retiring. And the family were absolutely horrified that my parents took these 3 little babies, because we were all babies then, to this place where there was no Jewish community at all.
Wow.
And they were very, very worried about us.
Wow. Okay. Well, it looked like it turned out all right in the end.
I think it all turned out all right in the end.
Okay, so we're basically nearly 40 years then, if the maths are correct. 40 years down. All right. So, I mean, I guess we can we'll throw in a couple of questions. I guess one of them will probably take time just to filter through and think about. Firstly, what have you seen change communally over the years? And secondly, in terms of highlights, if you could either, highlights, maybe special people, special events, if you'd have a highlight reel over the last, 40 years or so. I've heard a lot changed. I've heard various heroes of Stanmore that I've actually never met. There's certain people that, that Stanmore members talk about. Some of them I haven't met. I don't think I ever met Gina Turgle. She was a Stanmore. Yeah, I know. Shocking. She was a Stanmore legend. And there were many others. These are just,
many others, in a
sense, their names.
Well, not only that, most of the leaders of Anglo Jewry via the United Synagogue were very much involved in Stanmore. Sidney Frosch, Elkin Levy, names that I'm sure you've heard resonate throughout the community.
Sure.
And we came to a community that was bubbling over. Enormous membership in the sense of, I think that Stanmore was classed as the largest Orthodox congregation in Europe.
Wow.
At the stage that we came here. It's not that today, and many things have changed. And a lot of the changes really come out of just growing up. In other words, people come, get married, have children, children grow up, children move away, parents then follow their children sometimes, and then the community has to go through some sort of revival.
Interesting cycle.
As the case.
Yeah, isn't it interesting? I mean, we saw part of that cycle. My mum's from Cardiff, so she's seen a bit of a cycle there. It's just interesting talking about the biggest community. Do you know Rabbi Lera? You know Rabbi Barry Lera? So
yes.
He told me when he was deciding to become a rabbi, he's a Cohen. Right, so as a Cohen, you know, there's certain places you can't go in the cemetery. So he once expressed a bit of caution or reticence in terms of joining the rabbinate. And Rabbi Cohen, you know, the old Rabbi Stanmore, Jeffrey Cohen, so who was also clearly a Cohen. Rabbi Cohen went up to Rabbi Lera and said, "Don't you be reluctant. You just tell anyone who has anything bad to say to you, tell them that the rabbi of the biggest community in Europe is a Cohen." Right, and at that point, Rabbi Lera said, "Really, who's that?" he didn't know.
Okay, fine. Yeah, but it all says a lot about the community. I mean, at that stage, I remember you know Morris Hackenbroch?
Yeah.
Well, the shul used to have the biggest Motzei Shabbat during the winter. There were discos in the shul hall upstairs, the Freeman Zussman Hall, and literally thousands upon thousands of youngsters used to congregate around Stanmore.
Wow.
And the same was true on the Yomim Noraim. I mean, you'd have as many children and young people outside the shul as were inside the shul in congregational terms alone. It was quite an amazing community at that stage. But nothing stands still.
Right. And in terms of, I don't know, standout events, standout moments.
Well, I remember the 50th. I remember the 75th anniversary. There were always standout moments. Quite often, and I'm sure Rabbi Cohen won't mind me saying this, or I hope he won't mind me saying so, his sermons were often, should we say, if not controversial, were picked up by the Jewish Chronicle. And often caused a lot of comment and so on. And that usually bred a lot of comment within the community. He provoked thought.
Okay. Right. I actually remember Jeffrey Cohen. I was, as you probably know, was friendly. I was the same year as Gemma and the same year as Sam Taylor. I used to stay every now and again at the Taylors. In fact, my earliest Stanmore memory is being told off by Rabbi Shaw. He denies this to this very day, for misbehaving in Simchat Torah as a little kid.
Don't believe it.
Can't believe it.
I know.
Oh, that's funny.
I mean, the first official event that Rabbi Cohen ministered over was probably the Bat Chal of Michal, our oldest daughter. Yeah, I don't know if you know Michal. She's quite a bit older than Gemma. Gemma wasn't an afterthought by any means, but she came. There was an 8-year gap between her and her next sibling up.
Wow. Okay. Wow. So no, so I don't know Michal.
No. So we had Michal was born in Israel. Sarah and Ilana were born in Israel. Gemma was born in Edgware.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Other highlights. There have been so many. So many. I mean, people that we were friendly with. I mean, the Koskis, and you must have heard about the Koskis.
Yeah.
They were dear friends and much missed. And we were all very active. We were all doers. We all got stuck in. We were a community of people who did things rather than engage people to do it for them. So that built a unity that was quite unusual for a large synagogue.
Right. It's always had that kind of like feeling or air almost, kind of everyone mucking in, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I found it a very different community because I'd got used to davening in Israel. I don't have to describe the multitude of different types of services you have in Israel, but they're certainly not United Synagogue type services by and large, outside the Great Synagogue and one or two others. So I find 2.5 hours is my sort of focus time, but our services last longer than that normally. Yeah.
Right. No, I understand. I guess, like, if you had a kind of message to 2 generations, well, not 2, probably 3 or 4 generations time, who are, let's say, you've got youngsters moving into STEM, or you want to tell them a message or a theme, this community is special because, or this is what a community can become. If you had to put it into a couple of sentences, and I'm putting you on the spot, sorry, this is not pre-prepared.
No, well, I think the main thing I would say is don't expect the elders of the community to carry you. You should carry the elders of the community. In other words, don't wait for dead men's shoes, create your new shoes so that there's a cycle of renewal going on all the time. It's very easy with certain shuls, you see it, and you may have seen it, where certain people are entrenched and they don't want to let go of the management or the running of the shul. They almost feel it's their own possession.
Mm-hmm.
And I can sympathise with that to a certain extent when you build a community.
That, didn't we, when we came with the Ladies Guild?
Oh, the Ladies Guild used to frighten the life out of me.
We were all terrified with the Ladies Guild, weren't we?
They built the shul with their bare hands, you see. So, I mean, we were interlopers. But nonetheless, but I think for continuity's sake, we must make sure that the younger generation takes up the reins earlier than they have done historically.
Right, fantastic. Okay, brilliant. That's really helpful. Thank you for your time. And you have been watching Project Generation, and we look forward to further interviews. Thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure.